For 8 long years, Brad Pitt remained silent, refusing to speak publicly about one of the most high-profile and complicated chapters of his life, his marriage and subsequent divorce from Angelina Jolie. During this time, the world watched closely, forming opinions, taking sides, and creating narrative that often had little connection to reality. Headlines argued endlessly, some portraying him as a victim, others painting him as a villain, while Brad stayed completely quiet. This silence was not an indication of indifference, but a deliberate decision to step back from the chaos surrounding his personal life. Over the years, Brad faced immense legal challenges, media scrutiny, and the emotional strain of raising 6 children in a fractured family environment. His silence allowed the world to speculate, and for many, it became a frustrating and mysterious absence. The public was left to imagine how he felt, how he coped, and what he truly thought about the collapse of his family. Despite the fame, wealth, and Hollywood success that surrounded him, Brad lived through one of the most difficult periods of his life largely away from the cameras, away from judgment, and away from commentary. It was only in 2025, after nearly a decade of navigating this complex web of personal and legal struggles, that he chose to speak, revealing not anger, not resentment, but a man who had endured pain quietly and was finally ready to share his truth in a controlled, thoughtful manner. His words reflected the toll of years of silence, showing that even those who seem larger than life are deeply affected by the events that shaped their families, their reputations, and their own sense of self. Brad Pitt's story with Angelina Jolie began long before the headlines erupted. They first met in 2003 on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, a movie that would not only define a pivotal moment in their careers, but also change the course of their personal lives forever. At the time, Brad was still married to Jennifer Aniston, one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses, and Angelina had recently ended her marriage with Billy Bob Thornton. On set, their chemistry was undeniable, drawing the attention of the media immediately. Every glance, every interaction, every press appearance was dissected and speculated upon. By the time Brad and Jennifer finalized their divorce in 2005, the public had already built a narrative around him and Angelina. Their relationship became a fascination for fans and media alike, as every development was scrutinized, from casual outings to vacations to the adoption of their first child together. By 2006, when Shiloh was born, followed by the twins Knox and Vivian in 2008, and the adoption of Maddox, Zahara, and Pax, the world had fully embraced the idea of their family as a symbol of love, diversity, and unity. Hollywood dubbed them a model global family, seemingly perfect in every way. Their public image suggested happiness, stability, and a household built on mutual respect and love. Yet behind closed doors, the pressures of fame, parenting 6 children across multiple continents, and maintaining public appearances placed enormous stress on their marriage. What the world saw as a glamorous and perfect family life was far more complex and challenging behind the scenes. Their home, Chateau Miraval in France, purchased in 2008 for $28 million, became a sanctuary where they tried to nurture both their family and their vineyard business. For several years, it appeared as though they had found a balance between personal life and career, a place where love, family, and creativity could coexist. But even in paradise, cracks were beginning to show, foreshadowing a series of events that would ultimately lead to separation and prolonged legal conflicts. The collapse of Brad and Angelina's marriage became publicly visible in 2016 when Angelina filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. While the filing itself was shocking, the events leading up to it, particularly the infamous plane incident in September that year, intensified media scrutiny and public debate. According to legal filings, a verbal argument on a private flight escalated into physical confrontation, with allegations that Brad had grabbed their eldest son, Maddox, by the neck. Sources close to Brad denied this claim, yet the accusations alone were enough to trigger an FBI investigation because the incident occurred in international airspace, combined with child welfare inquiry by Los Angeles Department of Child and Family Services. The intense scrutiny, coupled with immediate legal proceedings and a flurry of court orders, reshaped Brad's life almost overnight. Custody arrangements were made, granting Angelina primary custody of all 6 children and allowing Brad visitation only under supervision. The years that followed involved complex negotiations, emotional strain, and a public perception that was often harsh and judgmental. The once united family became fragmented, with children gradually distancing themselves from their father. Legal battles stretched on, emotionally affecting every member of the family, including Brad, who later admitted that the events forced him to confront his personal struggles and led him to sobriety in 2016. This period of silence, reflection, and legal conflict shaped the narrative of the family's fall from public admiration to private turmoil, illustrating how fame, fortune, and family life can collide in unexpected and painful ways. The ongoing custody battles and family estrangement were compounded by the financial conflict surrounding Chateau Miraval, the French estate that had once symbolized peace and unity. Following the divorce, Brad and Angelina initially shared ownership, but disputes over control, sales, and management escalated over the years into a legal war involving international law, corporate agreements, and allegations of deliberate harm to the property's operations. These disputes further strained the family dynamics and prolonged the emotional toll on all parties. What had been a sanctuary of love and collaboration became a battlefield representing the complexities of separating personal relationships from shared assets and responsibilities. By 2024, the litigation had become so extensive that even minor disagreements were amplified into public controversies. Both Brad and Angelina's teams accused each other of bad faith, withholding information, and pursuing actions intended to harm the other party. The conflict over Miraval demonstrated how financial disputes, when combined with emotional wounds and public scrutiny, can magnify personal pain, prolong legal battles, and influence public perception. In the midst of this chaos, Brad remained silent, choosing not to engage with the media or defend himself publicly, reflecting a conscious decision to protect himself and his children from further harm. Brad Pitt's relationship with his children became a deeply complicated part of the post-divorce years, shaping much of his emotional life and public perception. As the custody battle extended from months into years, it became clear that the greatest wounds were not caused by court rulings or legal documents, but by the emotional distance that gradually grew between him and his 6 children. Maddox, the eldest, was reportedly the first to emotionally distance himself from Brad. By 2021, he had testified in court with statements that were described as unfavorable to his father, indicating a serious rupture in their relationship. While Angelina never publicly confirmed the extent of Maddox's feelings, leaked legal documents suggested he was even considering legally changing his surname to Jolie, a symbolic action signaling his personal separation from Brad. Pax, the second eldest, reacted even more visibly. In 2020, he posted a message on his private social media account describing Brad as an awful person and claiming that the children were fearful of him. Though the post was quickly deleted, the content spread widely, illustrating the lasting emotional damage within a family that had been hidden from public view for years. Shiloh, once seen as the embodiment of Brad and Angelina's love, also chose to legally change her surname to Jolie in 2024, further emphasizing the distance that had grown between her and her father. Vivian followed a similar path by aligning her professional identity with her mother. Even Knox, the youngest, while largely shielded from public scrutiny, had not been seen publicly with Brad for years. Despite this distancing, Brad reportedly sought to maintain connections with his children through family therapy sessions and supervised visits. According to sources close to his legal team, he made repeated efforts to bridge the emotional gap, but these attempts were limited in success due to the extensive emotional and psychological distance that had grown over the years. This estrangement, while deeply personal, also became a central theme in media narratives, further complicating public perception of Brad as a father and as a person who had once been celebrated for building a model family. The emotional toll of these years of separation, combined with public scrutiny and complex legal battles, illustrates how fame and family can collide in ways that are both profoundly human and intensely public. Parallel to the emotional conflicts, the financial disputes between Brad and Angelina escalated dramatically, turning the couple's divorce into one of the most complex and publicized legal battles in recent Hollywood history. Chateau Miraval, the picturesque French estate that had once been a shared sanctuary and the home of their highly successful wine business, became a center of contention following their separation. Initially, Brad maintained 60% ownership through his company Mondo Bongo, with Angelina holding 40%. However, the situation became increasingly tense when Angelina sold her entire stake to a Russian billionaire, Yuri Shefler, without Brad's consent. Brad's legal team alleged that the sale violated an agreement that required mutual written approval before any transaction could occur. Angelina's legal representatives countered, claiming that Brad had refused to buy her out under certain conditions, and that any non-disclosure agreement he proposed was intended to silence her rather than preserve the estate. Over the following years, this dispute grew into a complex international legal case involving corporate law, allegations of malice, and the production of dozens of contested documents. Each side accused the other of bad faith, with tensions escalating as legal filings revealed ongoing disputes over management profits and responsibilities related to the winery. What had been a symbol of unity and a shared vision for the family became a battleground, reflecting the broader emotional and personal fractures that accompanied the divorce. The financial conflict, combined with the estrangement of the children and years of emotional tension, contributed to a prolonged period of public scrutiny that few could endure without personal consequences. Brad's choice to remain largely silent during these years, while frustrating for the media and public, may have been an effort to maintain dignity, avoid inflaming the conflict further, and focus on his own healing process. This blend of emotional and financial struggles illustrates the magnitude of challenges faced by high-profile individuals when personal, family, and public lives collide in ways that are impossible to fully separate. The turning point in this long saga came in May 2025, when Brad Pitt finally chose to break his silence in a widely anticipated GQ interview. For nearly a decade, the public had not heard directly from him regarding his divorce, the estrangement from his children, or the legal battles over Chateau Miraval. The interview marked the first time he addressed these deeply personal subjects in a controlled, reflective environment. Brad spoke with a tone that was calm, measured, and almost resigned, showing the emotional weight of years of silence without appearing defensive or bitter. He acknowledged the end of his marriage, the challenges of legal disputes, and the distance that had grown between him and his children, but did so without naming individuals or assigning blame. He admitted that his silence over the years had been intentional. "I didn't see the point of speaking up when everything was chaos. Silence was the only way to avoid making things worse," he explained. This statement revealed a man who had endured not only public judgment, but also private emotional struggles, seeking to protect himself and his family from further harm. Brad also confirmed that he had been fully sober since 2016 and described his current life as one focused on meditation, reading, quiet work, and sculpting. He emphasized that he had stepped back from public life not in defeat, but to find peace and regain control over his own personal narrative. The interview reflected a sense of closure, rather than a plea for sympathy, allowing him to reclaim his voice after years of being spoken for by headlines and legal filings. Public reaction was divided. Some admired his restraint and honesty, while others criticized him for not addressing accountability more directly. Regardless, for Brad, the interview represented a long-awaited opportunity to close a painful chapter, reaffirm his identity, and signal a new phase in his personal life. Following the interview, Brad Pitt's life has taken a markedly different path, characterized by privacy, creative pursuits, and selective engagement with the world around him. Professionally, he remains a powerful force in Hollywood through his production company, Plan B, responsible for numerous Oscar-winning films, such as 12 Years a Slave, Moonlight, The Big Short, and Women Talking. Despite a long hiatus from leading roles, Brad is poised to return to the screen in a high-profile Formula One film produced by Apple Studios in collaboration with Lewis Hamilton, signaling both a professional reinvention and a desire to embrace projects that challenge and excite him. Outside of work, he has chosen a life of solitude and reflection, spending most of his time at his Santa Barbara estate where he sculpts, gardens, reads, and enjoys personal quiet. Reports in 2025 also indicate that Brad is engaged to Swiss jewelry designer Ernest de Ramon, highlighting a willingness to embrace new relationships while maintaining discretion and privacy. This phase of his life demonstrates a capacity for growth, healing, and reinvention even after years of public scrutiny, personal loss, and family conflict. It is a testament to Brad's resilience and ability to redefine himself on his own terms, balancing personal fulfillment with ongoing professional achievement, while carefully protecting the private life that had long been exposed to public view. The public reaction to Brad Pitt's 2025 GQ interview was immediate and diverse, reflecting the complexity of his story and the emotional investment of fans worldwide. Social media platforms were flooded with comments, debates, and discussions about what he said or didn't say. Many admired his restraint, noting that he avoided blaming Angelina, naming his children, or rehashing painful incidents in public. These viewers saw his approach as mature, reflective, and emotionally intelligent, emphasizing that not every personal detail needs to be broadcast to the world. They praised Brad for reclaiming his narrative without fueling further media sensationalism, showing a man who had endured immense stress, public criticism, and private family struggles with dignity. On the other hand, critics argued that Brad's statements were carefully calculated, portraying him as emotionally distant or avoiding full accountability. Some felt that he could have addressed certain accusations more directly, particularly those related to his relationships with his children. Despite these differences in public reception, one thing was clear. The interview allowed Brad to take a step out of the shadow of his past, finally expressing himself in a measured way that no headline or media story could accurately capture. For Hollywood and celebrity culture, this moment served as a reminder of the challenges faced by those whose personal lives are constantly under scrutiny. It highlighted the tension between public curiosity and private reality, showing that even the most celebrated stars face struggles that are often invisible behind the glitz and glamour. Analysts and commentators noted that Brad's decision to speak after 8 years of silence might also influence how future celebrities handle personal crises, suggesting that restraint, honesty, and measured disclosure can be more effective than constant public statements or social media defenses. Ultimately, the reaction underscored the human side of celebrity life. Behind the fame, fortune, and media spectacle, there are real people coping with real emotions, relationships, and life transitions, all while being watched by millions. Brad Pitt's personal transformation after years of turmoil demonstrates a remarkable story of resilience, growth, and redefinition. Professionally, he continues to be one of Hollywood's most influential figures through production work, shaping stories that resonate with audiences around the world. Yet it is the quieter aspects of his life that illustrate the depth of his personal evolution. Away from red carpets, paparazzi, and media frenzy, Brad has embraced meditation, reading, sculpting, and gardening, pursuits that offer mindfulness, reflection, and a sense of peace he had long sought. His engagement to Swiss jewelry designer Ernesta Ramon marks not only a new chapter in his romantic life, but also an example of his ability to pursue happiness while maintaining privacy. These steps, combined with sobriety and personal introspection, reflect a conscious effort to focus on personal well-being, meaningful relationships, and fulfillment outside the public eye. The journey from public scrutiny, emotional estrangement from his children, and prolonged legal battles to a more private and purposeful existence underscores the resilience required to recover from profound personal upheaval. It also highlights the lessons of patience, self-care, and perspective that can emerge from experiencing intense challenges. While the story of Brad and Angelina's marriage, divorce, and family struggles remains one of the most captivating in recent Hollywood history, it is Brad's ability to find balance, maintain integrity, and quietly rebuild his life that ultimately defines the narrative of his post-divorce years. This transformation is not about erasing the past, but about learning from it, acknowledging reality, and creating a life that reflects personal priorities and values rather than external expectations. Looking at the entire journey, Brad Pitt's life after his divorce from Angelina Jolie serves as both a cautionary tale and a story of hope. It illustrates how fame, fortune, and family can collide in ways that are emotionally and legally complex, impacting relationships, mental health, and public perception. The 8-year period of silence, emotional estrangement, and legal conflict reflects the intensity of such situations, showing that high-profile individuals are not immune to deeply human struggles. Yet, Brad's eventual decision to speak, his ongoing sobriety, and his focus on creative and personal fulfillment reveal the power of resilience and self-reinvention. It is a narrative that emphasizes reflection over reaction, patience over impulsivity, and personal growth over public approval. For audiences and fans, it is a reminder that the lives of celebrities, though often glamorized, are filled with challenges, heartbreak, and moments of quiet perseverance. Brad's story also serves as an example of the importance of prioritizing emotional health, pursuing meaningful personal connections, and defining success on one's own terms. In the end, what stands out is not the legal battles, public scrutiny, or media speculation, but man reclaiming his voice, rebuilding his life, and seeking peace after years of turmoil. The After the Storm chapter of Brad Pitt's life is less about fame or fortune and more about human resilience, personal evolution, and the quiet determination to live a life aligned with one's values and priorities. It is a story that resonates beyond Hollywood, offering insight, reflection, and inspiration for anyone who has faced public pressure, personal loss, or the challenge of starting over. After years of public scrutiny, legal battles, and deeply personal heartbreak, Brad Pitt's life today reflects a profound transformation, a journey from chaos to quiet resilience. The 8 years following his divorce from Angelina Jolie were marked by emotional distance from his children, complex financial disputes over Chateau Miraval, and relentless media speculation that magnified every misstep or rumor into worldwide headlines. For a man accustomed to controlling a professional narrative through award-winning films and powerful Hollywood influence, this lack of control over his personal story was a humbling and painful experience. Yet, through this prolonged period of difficulty, Brad found ways to reclaim his life, not through public confrontation or media statements, but through deliberate introspection, creative expression, and a focus on personal well-being. His sobriety, achieved in 2016 following the infamous plane incident and subsequent legal pressures, became a turning point, offering him clarity and a renewed sense of self. Meditation, sculpting, reading, and gardening became daily rituals that allowed him to process grief, disappointment, and estrangement in ways that headlines and tabloids could never capture. Professionally, he continued to influence Hollywood behind the scenes through his production company, Plan B, overseeing projects that earned Oscars and critical acclaim, proving that even amid personal turmoil, he could create meaningful and impactful work. Simultaneously, Brad maintained a deliberate distance from social media and the constant glare of paparazzi, choosing instead a life of relative privacy in his Santa Barbara state, where he could reconnect with himself, reflect on the lessons learned, and foster environments of calm and stability, something that had been impossible during the height of his family and legal struggles. His engagement to Swiss jewelry designer Ernest de Ramon represents more than a romantic milestone. It is a symbol of renewal, showing that after enduring emotional hardship and public judgment, he is capable of embracing happiness on his own terms, without the interference of media speculation or external pressure. The process of reconnecting with his inner life, prioritizing emotional health, and focusing on meaningful creative projects reflect a man who has learned the value of patience, resilience, and perspective. It is also a narrative about accountability and acceptance, not in a way that publicly blames others or seeks validation, but in a quiet acknowledgement of reality, understanding that some relationships, like those with his children, may remain complicated, and that the past cannot be rewritten, only reflected upon. Through this lens, Brad's journey serves as a broader lesson about human growth, that life's most difficult moments, when faced with courage and reflection, can lead to deeper self-awareness, renewed purpose, and a recalibration of priorities that favors authenticity over performance. For audiences, his story resonates beyond Hollywood, offering a message about the importance of self-care, the power of resilience, and the potential for personal reinvention even after experiencing public failure, private loss, and profound relational fracture. Brad Pitt's life after the storm is, in many ways, an illustration of hope, that even in moments when silence seems safer than confrontation, when personal connections are strained and public opinion is harsh, one can find a path toward peace, fulfillment, and a life defined not by past chaos, but by deliberate, mindful choices in the present and future. This chapter of his life is less about celebrity, scandal, or litigation, and more about the enduring human capacity to heal, reflect, and rebuild, proving that the quietest transformations often carry the most powerful and lasting impact on one's identity, family, and sense of purpose. The public's reaction to Brad Pitt's long-awaited interview in 2025 was as intense and varied as the years of speculation that had preceded it. Social media platforms erupted with commentary, debates, and emotional responses, reflecting the global fascination with his life and personal struggles. Some fans praised Brad's restraint, highlighting how he managed to speak honestly without blaming Angelina, naming his children, or sensationalizing the painful events of the past. Many admired his ability to reclaim his voice quietly, noting that it demonstrated emotional intelligence, maturity, and a deep understanding of the complexities of family dynamics. For years, the public had only seen carefully curated lawyer statements or paparazzi photos, which often left a skewed impression of Brad as either a victim or a villain. The interview, however, presented him as a deeply human figure, vulnerable yet self-aware, navigating personal failures, estranging from loved ones and the pressures of fame with honesty and introspection. Critics, meanwhile, argued that the interview avoided accountability in certain areas, particularly regarding the emotional distance between him and his children. They claimed he could be more direct about addressing the allegations and his own missteps, viewing his calm tone as a form of emotional detachment. Yet, even critics seemed to recognize that this was a man attempting to reconcile a lifetime of public scrutiny with private pain, doing so in a way that allowed him to preserve dignity and personal growth. Media analysts and Hollywood commentators also noted the broader cultural significance of Brad's words, suggesting that his approach might set a precedent for other celebrities navigating personal crises. In an era dominated by instant social media reactions, public confessions, and viral controversies, Brad's measured silence and deliberate reflection offer an alternative model, one in which privacy, restraint, and thoughtful communication could be a form of empowerment rather than weakness. The interview sparked wider discussions about the intersection of fame, family, and personal responsibility, reminding audiences that even those who appear larger than life face struggles that are deeply human. Beyond the public spectacle, the moment marked a turning point for Brad himself, a chance to redefine his identity, clarify misconceptions, and signal that, after years of pain and conflict, he was ready to move forward. For fans and observers alike, it served as both a revelation and a lesson that the way one chooses to handle personal challenges, especially under public scrutiny, can shape not only one's own life, but also the narratives that society constructs about them. In this sense, Brad Pitt's interview was more than just a statement about his past. It was a reflection on celebrity culture itself, the pressures it imposes, and the quiet strength it takes to live authentically within it. Looking back at Brad Pitt's journey after his divorce from Angelina Jolie, it becomes clear that his story is as much about personal growth and resilience as it is about fame, scandal, or public scrutiny. The years of emotional estrangement from his children, protracted legal battles, and relentless media attention could have defined him entirely, leaving only a portrait of loss, conflict, and regret. Instead, Brad chose a different path, one of introspection, self-reinvention, and deliberate prioritization of personal well-being over public validation. By embracing sobriety, meditation, and creative pursuits such as sculpting and reading, he created space to heal and process the pain that had accumulated over nearly a decade. Professionally, he maintained influence in Hollywood through his production company Plan B, continuing to support films that explore complex human stories and achieve critical acclaim, proving that even amidst personal turmoil, one can remain creatively vibrant and impactful. His engagement to N.S. de Ramon symbolizes not only a romantic chapter, but also the ability to embrace happiness without yielding to external pressures or public expectations. The 8 years of silence, once perceived by some as avoidance or withdrawal, can now be seen as a period of necessary reflection, a way to regain control over his narrative, understand his limitations, and focus on what truly matters. In many ways, his life after the storm reflects universal truths about the human experience. That personal setbacks, broken relationships, and public judgment do not define one's entire existence. That resilience, self-care, and intentional choices can transform even the most painful experiences into opportunities for growth. And that it is possible to reclaim agency over one's life, even when it feels fragmented or out of control. Brad's story also challenges common assumptions about celebrity life, illustrating that fame does not protect against emotional pain, that wealth cannot always shield one from relational complexity, and that public perception is often far removed from private reality. Ultimately, his journey reminds us that recovery and reinvention are lifelong processes, requiring patience, courage, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. It is a story about accepting reality without surrendering hope, about finding meaning beyond the chaos of headlines, and about creating a life that reflects personal values rather than external approval. The chapter that began with divorce, custody battles, and financial disputes has evolved into one defined by clarity, peace, and deliberate choice. Brad Pitt's post-divorce life, now focused on emotional restoration, creative engagement, and carefully curated personal relationships, serves as both a cautionary tale and inspiring example, a reminder that even after years of upheaval, it is possible to find equilibrium, rebuild trust within oneself, and move forward with dignity, purpose, and renewed perspective. In the end, the most enduring legacy of this turbulent period is not tabloid stories, lawsuits, or headlines, but a human capacity to heal, transform, and create a meaningful life beyond the storms that once seemed insurmountable. After enduring nearly a decade of public scrutiny, custody battles, and relentless media speculation, Brad Pitt's journey post-divorce illustrates the profound impact that fame and personal loss can have on an individual, and the ways in which resilience and introspection can help rebuild a shattered life. In the years following his separation from Angelina Jolie, Brad faced challenges that extended far beyond legal disputes and financial negotiations over Chateau Miraval. He confronted the emotional distance from children he had once held in his arms, the weight of judgment from a global audience, and the personal reckoning that comes with realizing that public image and private reality often collide in painful ways. The constant glare of cameras, the sensational headlines, and the social media commentary created an environment in which every personal decision was scrutinized, analyzed, and debated by millions. For someone accustomed to controlling his narrative through film and carefully crafted public appearances, this loss of control over his own story was both disorienting and humbling. Yet, through this period of enforced silence and reflection, Brad found pathways toward healing and personal growth. He turned inward, embracing sobriety as a cornerstone of his recovery in 2016, shortly after the infamous plane incident that had triggered both FBI and child welfare investigations. Meditation, sculpting, and reading became daily rituals that allowed him to process grief, regret, and estrangement in ways that were invisible to the public eye. These activities were not mere hobbies. They were lifelines that offered structure, calm, and perspective, helping him navigate the complex emotions that arose from fractured relationships and years of emotional turbulence. Professionally, he maintained influence in Hollywood through Plan B, ensuring that despite personal upheaval, his creative contributions continue to shape the film industry. By producing award-winning and critically acclaimed projects such as 12 Years a Slave, Moonlight, and Women Talking, he reminded the world and himself of the capacity to create meaningful, impactful work even when his personal life felt fractured. On a personal level, Brad's engagement to Swiss jewelry designer Ernesta Ramon represents a new chapter, a symbol of renewal, an embrace of joy and companionship on his own terms, free from the pressures of fame or public expectation. The years of silence, previously interpreted by some as avoidance, now appear as a deliberate strategy to protect both his mental health and the fragile bonds within his family, providing space for reflection and preventing further publicized conflict. Brad's journey also offers a lens into the emotional complexities faced by public figures, that wealth and status do not insulate one from heartbreak, that celebrity often magnifies ordinary human struggles into global spectacles, and that healing requires intentional effort, self-awareness, and sometimes prolonged periods of solitude. Through introspection, creative expression, and disciplined personal growth, Brad has crafted a life that prioritizes authenticity over appearances, personal peace over public validation, and emotional resilience over reactive engagement with criticism. His story resonates universally because it demonstrates that no matter how visible one's life may be, everyone must contend with loss, family challenges, and the consequences of decisions made under stress. In this way, Brad Pitt's post-divorce evolution is more than a celebrity narrative. It is a reflection on the human capacity to endure, adapt, and reconstruct a meaningful life after profound upheaval. It emphasizes that true strength often manifests not in dramatic statements or public vindication, but in quiet perseverance, self-reflection, and a consistent choice to live intentionally, fostering personal well-being, creative fulfillment, and a renewed sense of purpose even after years of emotional turmoil. Ultimately, his journey reminds us that life's most difficult chapters can, with patience and resilience, give rise to transformation, clarity, and the possibility of a more balanced and fulfilling existence, proving that even in the shadow of public scrutiny and personal heartbreak, a new life defined by dignity, reflection, and intentional growth is not only possible but attainable. Brad Pitt's journey also highlights the intense pressures and contradictions inherent in Hollywood life, where personal struggles are magnified by media scrutiny and private challenges often become public spectacle. In an industry where image is everything and every action is dissected for entertainment or gossip, even the most personal matters, like family dynamics and divorce, become fodder for headlines and social commentary. For Brad, the post-divorce years were not only about navigating legal battles or family estrangement, but also about managing a public narrative that often painted him as either a villain or a victim. Each paparazzi photo, each social media post, and each speculative article contributed to a perception that rarely aligned with his private reality. The disparity between public perception and private truth created an emotional strain that few outside his inner circle could truly comprehend. Yet, despite the relentless pressure, Brad maintained a professionalism and creative influence, demonstrating that one can operate at the highest level in industry while enduring profound personal challenges. His ability to continue producing critically acclaimed and award-winning films through Plan B, projects that often dealt with socially important and emotionally complex themes, showcases not only his artistic vision, but also his resilience and commitment to meaningful work. The Hollywood spotlight may have amplified his personal pain, but also offered a platform to demonstrate integrity, perseverance, and a capacity to transform hardship into creative expression. Additionally, Brad's experience underscores the broader implications of celebrity culture, where divorces and family disputes are not private matters, but global narratives that can influence public discourse about morality, parenting, and responsibility. His silence over 8 years was often misinterpreted, but it was, in reality, a deliberate response to the pressures of living life under a microscope, a conscious choice to protect his emotional health and the delicate balance of his family relationships. The lessons extend beyond Hollywood. Brad's story reminds audiences that fame does not exempt anyone from human vulnerability, that public opinion can distort reality, and that true resilience often requires choosing reflection over reaction, patience over confrontation, and long-term well-being over immediate validation. His later public statements, measured and introspective, serve as a model for handling personal crises in a world that demands instant responses, showing that thoughtful silence and deliberate action can be more powerful than any immediate rebuttal. Moreover, his path illustrates how personal evolution can coexist with professional excellence. Despite years of family conflict and emotional distance, Brad maintained his influence in the entertainment industry, demonstrating that one's professional identity does not have to be destroyed by private turmoil. The balance he has cultivated between personal reflection, creative output, and measured public engagement offers valuable insights into the intersection of fame, accountability, and emotional resilience. In this light, Brad Pitt's post-divorce life serves as both a cautionary tale about the dangers of celebrity scrutiny and a source of inspiration for anyone navigating personal hardship.